I wanted to talk about we've been talking specifically a lot about how some of the crazy people on the lib side of the aisle are acting in response to, again, a heinous murder and assassination of Charlie Kirk. What is interesting is seeing how some of the mainstream media is responding to our response from this. Yesterday, J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, hosted Charlie's podcast slash radio show and said things that I think we all agree to be true. During the last segment of yesterday's show, we showed J.D. Vance saying there is no unity between people who disagree fundamentally with reality. Obviously, he put it in much nicer terms and probably pinpointed a little bit better. But that's what he effectively was saying. Hey, if you don't agree with the truth and therefore you can justify murder, there's no unity with that toward a person. There is unity with people who disagree with us. There's unity between folks who think, yeah, I think the government should do this versus this, but also agree, yeah, you shouldn't be killing people. There shouldn't be political assassinations. There can be unity with those folks, the unity around, yeah, let's not murder each other in cold blood for our difference in belief, but there can't be unity with people who don't agree with that. And therefore, there was a lot of, I'll refrain from using some of the terminology that I think I'd like to use, but there was a lot of discussion on the lib side of the aisle, and I thought this piece from the New York Times was particularly interesting. Now, remember, I just said, J.D. Vance said, we have all said, we can agree on different things and how they look in regards to how we think the country should be run. What we can't disagree on is whether or not the fundamental values, not murdering each other for our political beliefs, is bad. We have to agree that that is bad, and if we can't, there's no way forward. Encompassed in the people that we can disagree with civilly but still respect are liberals. That's just the reality of it. Liberals can be encompassed in that, especially if they believe that political assassination is bad. This is a New York Times headline that I'm curious to see if you think leads up to that or fulfills that idea of, hey, liberals can be in the fold of decent, moderate society when they say this: the White House plans broad crackdown on liberal groups. Did anybody say that? Did anybody say, broadly speaking, we're just going to start cracking down on liberals? Or did they be precise with their language? And precision in language is what we've been talking about a lot on this show lately. Or did J.D. Vance say, no, the radicals? Did President Trump say the radicals? Because that's what they're saying. Yet the New York Times says broad crackdown on liberal groups. Some of the highest ranking officials, says the New York Times, in the federal government used Charlie Kirk's podcast, guest hosted by President J.D. Vance, to lay out their plans. President Trump and his top advisors threatened on Monday to unleash the power of the federal government to punish what they allege is left-wing network funds that incite violence. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, we should do that. Now, I would guarantee you, though, that President Trump would not say that the people that incite violence, that think violence is okay, are not encompassed in the broad lefty movement. But that's what the New York Times says. That's the language that they use. They specifically say funds that incite violence. There's just a line. This is a throwaway line that I thought was just fascinating. Investigators are still working to identify the motive of the death of Mr. Kirk. Okay, we don't even need to dive into that discussion. I think despite anything, let's just take all of that evidence out of it. What we saw was an entire internet response celebrating, which is just as bad, in my opinion. Maybe not just as bad, but it's 95% of the way there. So that is what it is. Interestingly enough, people in Congress started weighing in. This is again in the New York Times. They report that Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut said, pay attention, the murder of Charlie Kirk could have united Americans to confront political violence. Instead, President Trump and his anti-democratic radicals look to be readying a campaign to destroy dissent. Is that really what they're doing? Saying, hey, the radical leftists that promote violence, we can all agree that that's bad. Instead, Senator Murphy says they're crushing dissent, destroying dissent. All right. Congressman Greg Casser says of Trump, he cannot be allowed to use the horrible murder of Charlie Kirk as a pretext to go after peaceful political opposition. Again, nobody is doing that. Are the folks that are going after the peaceful political opposition in the room with us now, Congressman Casser? Are they among us as we speak? Because clearly they're the delusions in your own head, because no one is freaking saying that. And it's hard to not laugh at this because it's so ridiculous and absurd. But the problem is that these are people with actual power. These are people with voices in our government saying things that are objectively not true. And interestingly enough, if you go further down in the New York Times, they even say the true thing. This is again from that article in the New York Times saying the White House plans broader crackdown on liberal groups when that is not what happened. They said we're gonna go after the radicals that are inciting violence, but again they choose to encompass all liberals in that, and the senator and the congressman seem to agree. This is also from that article. Two senior administration officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe the internal planning said the cabinet secretaries and federal department heads were working to identify organizations that funded or supported violence against conservatives. Yeah. Unless, of course, you're burying the lead here and all liberal groups support violence against conservatives, that's not what we're talking about. Unless, of course, it is. Unless it's an admission. Unless Senator Murphy or unless Congressman Kasser are admitting that all liberals want to do violence against conservatives, which I don't believe, by the way. I'm just trying to prove a point. Unless they're admitting that all of the things that they said are a lie. Everything they said is trying to create political fervor on their own side, using the pretext to go after peaceful political opposition, says Congressman Kasser. When in the article that he's quoted in saying that says, supported and funding violence against conservatives. That's what the president is going after, and they should, by the way. They should go after people that are funding and supporting political violence against their ideological opposites. That should happen, and I'm glad that they are doing that. But for the New York Times and for the senator and congressman, among many others, I'm sure, to try and twist it as, well, liberals more broadly are going to be affected by this. People who are just peacefully protesting and saying that those people are also in the fold of the folks that like violence, either one is an admission or two is a bold-faced lie. Don't have any other way to put it. You want to talk about being responsible in your language? Take some of your own advice, New York Times.